I should... For America. Now, technically, Canada's in America. Because North America, South America, Central America. So when the Americans, the United States Americans say America, it's like, yeah, I can get behind that. But today, Capitol building, this is very American. Just my Columbus hat turned backwards. And I got American flags yesterday. I kind of threw these in the cart. It was one of those things where while we were down in Bellingham, I was like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm getting these. And I was like, why? Because we don't live in the States. I live in Canada. I'm Canadian. It's funny, too, because I was down there, and I was wearing my Dallas Stars jersey. And one of the guys ahead of us at the post office said, Dallas Stars? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how are things in Texas? I'm like, I wouldn't know. No idea. So that was a weird exchange, different than in Canada, where I would get something completely different. So in the States, if somebody recognizes my jersey, they think, well, he must be from there because he's wearing a hockey jersey. But kind of fun. So as the United States turns over the odometer again, and I try to figure out a way to display these while I'm doing a video, which is not easy. Is this going to work? I want to be taken seriously. If I'm going to get a job on TV, I need to be serious. I need to be taken seriously. I need to be a serious journalist. It needs to happen. This may not be the route I wanted to take. Alright, no, I'm going to stick with it. So, I talk a lot about hockey players, and it seems like I talk almost always about Canadian-born hockey players. At least it feels that way. And I thought about this yesterday. I thought, Shannon, you're always talking about Canadian-born hockey players, and why not talk about the US born? And talk about your favorite American players. Favorite American players. So here we go. My all-time favorite American players that I've watched. So if you don't see him, you go, where is he? Probably didn't watch him. Number 25, Gordie Roberts. Fantastic stay-at-home defenseman who seemed to be around forever. Eric Weinrich barely missed this list because he was also a stay-at-home defenseman who seemed to be around forever. Decent offensive skill in the beginning, though. Number 24, Mike Ramsey, defensive defenseman, around forever. Greatly respected by me, member of the Miracle on Ice in 1980. And I'm pretty sure he had the longest career of any Miracle on Ice hockey player. Not the flashiest, but the one who lasted the longest. Number 23, this is a current player playing for these guys and probably thinking, so next year I'm a free agent, where am I going to go? Because, yeah, John Carlson is... I've talked up how much I like him as a defenseman, and I'm kind of surprised at what's going on in Washington, but still, Carlson's still one of my favorites. Number 22, and Van Beesbroek became one of my more favored players when he went to Florida. Never one of my favorites with the Rangers, and during his time with the Canucks, those couple of days, he didn't play a single game. So, Florida, Van Beesbroek. I was one of the Canuck fans that at the time thought, okay, we're protecting Kirk McLean in the expansion draft and exposing Van Beesbroek. Can we talk about this at least for a minute? No, he's already gone to Florida? Oh, okay. And I love Kirk McLean, but it was like, Beezer's damn good. Number 21, Joe Mullen. Probably one of the most talented American players ever. Definitely one of the most offensively explosive American players ever. Not one of my overall favorites, but I appreciated him when he was a member of the Blues, member of the Flames, and Penguins. And back when I didn't mind Calgary and I almost cheered for them, kind of sort of cheered for them, Mullen was there. Number 20. This is a current player as well, which is Craig Anderson. Anderson, the story of him this season would make him number 1. But in terms of being my favorite player, he's to number 20. So if we're going to go with the inspirational story of American players, actually I don't know if he would be number 1. There's one that's further up on this list that would probably be number 1. But for my favorite players, he's number 20. So hope Sens fans won't mind that. Number 19, Patrick Eaves. Eaves is a guy who went from underrated, now he's overrated. I think the truth is he's a 20-goal scorer. But between the beard and the fact that he was so good for Dallas when the rest of the team was such crap this past season, he really won my respect to the point where I didn't cheer against him in Anaheim. I cheered against Anaheim, but not against him. There's a difference. Number 18, Mark Howe. Howe, the son of Gordie, American because Gordie played in the States, so odds of his son being born in the States were high. Mark Howe did play with his dad and with his brother Marty. Marty was not nearly as talented as Mark, but it's not an offense to Marty because most players weren't. If Mark Howe had played his entire career in the NHL and not spent any time in the WHA, I really think we would be talking about him in the same breath as guys like Denny Potvin. But some of his younger and probably more productive years that he would have had in the NHL, he spent in the WHA. So, it was a great story that him and his dad and his brother all played together with the Whalers at the same time. As a selfish NHL fan, it's too bad that he didn't play his whole career in the NHL. Because, yeah, it would have been awesome. Number 17, I mentioned him yesterday for my Bruins. I'm going to mention him again, Bobby Carpenter. I really like those middle six guys who work really hard, play really hard, and don't get as much credit at the end. I mean, Carpenter had some very solid offensive seasons, but even when his offense wasn't as strong, he was still a very good player. Really liked him. Number 16, Ryan Miller. And again, when he was in Buffalo, I kind of thought he was arrogant. I wasn't a huge fan of his, and his 3 years in Vancouver proved me completely wrong. And I wish him nothing but the best. I hope Anaheim trades him to Boston at the deadline, and then Boston wins the Stanley Cup. I don't see that ever happening, but hey, I want to see Miller win a Stanley Cup, just not in Anaheim. Again, I cheer for the player, not the team. 15, Rod Langway. I talk a lot about Langway. Absolutely amazing player. Underrated, and his career ended before. I don't think he hit 1,000 games. He was close, but he was a warrior. Absolutely, would have been revered today. Number 14, and this is the inspirational story. Patty LaFontaine, a career cut short by injury, and it is a bloody shame because as much as I talk about how Mark Howe's career would have been enhanced if he'd played his entire career in the NHL, Patty LaFontaine's would have been so much greater had he not suffered injuries as time went on. And to this day, he's usually in and around the hockey world because he loves hockey. So, number 13. I'm a short guy, so the Brian Giunta story is inspirational. The fact that a guy who's 5'6", 5'7" can get 48 goals, that's pretty cool. He never got near it again. That's fine. He's still sitting out there as a free agent. I think he's going to be a very valuable bottom six pickup for a team. I think he's going to be capable of being a leader to a team. I hope he gets picked up soon. Number 12, also formerly of the Buffalo Sabres, and also because he's a tiny guy and he shouldn't be in the NHL. Nathan Gerbe should never have been in the NHL. He didn't play that many games. He didn't. And he's out now. And his size eventually caught up with him. But just the fact he played at all, just the fact that he was useful at all, that's pretty inspirational. Number 11. Minnesota. Stanley Cup Final. When you watch Mario Lemieux's famous goal where he basically undresses the entire Stars and goes around a goalie, this was the goalie who went around John Casey. John Casey was a really solid goaltender. I believe he ended his career in Boston. And he's one of the reasons why when people say goaltenders were garbage back when there was a lot of scoring, they weren't. They weren't garbage. I always found that weird. Goalies were garbage. No, an entire position wasn't garbage, because if it was, it would have been talked about a lot more. They weren't garbage. It was a totally different game. Casey wasn't garbage. He was a damn good goaltender, and he was fun to watch. Number 10, Kevin Hatcher, which means that at number 9, I have Darian Hatcher. The Hatcher boys played together for my Stars, and it was fun when they played together, and it was a shame it didn't last longer than it did, much like the Courtnalls in Vancouver. But man, I tell you, and I know Darian's career was cut short because when they brought in the rules about obstruction, both of them actually, their speed wasn't what you would ideally hope for in a defenseman in the new era, so their careers were cut short by that. But I really can't argue with the fact that they were two of my favorite players. Why would I argue with myself? Well, I do that. No, I don't. Yeah, I do. Number 8. I don't know why. I used to, when I got hockey cards, it was the 81, 82 Reed Larson O-Pee-Chee card. And it was my favorite. And I don't know why. But from that year on, I would get Reed Larson cards. And he, from what I remember when I was younger as a kid, Larson would always play really, really well in games that I watched of whoever he was against, whether it was against any Canadian team. Because remember, this is back in the day when you had to physically turn the channel. You had 13 channels. And anytime I saw Larson, I was impressed. So that's just me, though. I'm pretty sure that anybody else can be like, Reed Larson. Number 7, Dave Christian. I absolutely thought Dave Christian was a fantastic player. And I will talk up Dave Christian during this offseason as much as I have to. And drink Coke Zero till they give me some kind of a deal. Or Cherry Coke Zero. Call me. Number 7, Dave Christian, because he scored big goals. He was a really good player for Boston. I remember him being good for St. Louis. Pretty sure he played in Winnipeg as well. Just a really solid player. Number 6. This really doesn't need to be spoken about. I've talked up Corey Schneider so much over the last year, and I've taken flack over the last couple of months because Jersey had a really poor season, and his season wasn't very good either. But last summer, when I talked up Corey Schneider, nobody argued with me about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, Corey Schneider's one of the best." Now everybody's like, "Oh, Schneider, he sucks. He sucks." It's 1 year. Number 5. You want to talk about careers cut short for American players? Adam Deadmarsh. If you were a Kings fan, if you were a Hurricanes fan, if you were an Avalanche fan, you know what I'm talking about. Adam Deadmarsh was awesome. Yes, he was. He was never a point-a-game guy, but I really liked Adam Deadmarsh, and it was really upsetting to me when his career just stopped. I understand why it stopped, but it sucks, because, again, this is a career that should have gone on. He should have played 1,200 games. He should have scored about 700 points, and it just didn't happen. Number 4. Well, I've talked this guy up a lot, so I don't think my love of Torrey Krug is going to surprise anybody. Doesn't surprise me. It would be great if I looked through these and went, wait, what? What? Why is he there? Oh, well, I'll leave it there. Torrey Krug right now is one of my favorite Bruins. My favorite Bruin is a Canadian, so there's no point. And I didn't do this for Canada Day because, seriously, there are so many Canadian players. To the point where those of us in Canada, I think sometimes we just assume everybody's Canadian if they sound Canadian, and Torrey Krug kind of sounds Canadian. American. I really like him. Number 3. One of the greatest names in the history of hockey. Jamie Langenbrunner. He was born to play hockey. Anybody with the name Langenbrunner, if you're not playing hockey, I don't understand what you're doing with your life. You should be playing hockey. Because Langenbrunner is the ultimate hockey name. And Svatos. Svatos is the ultimate hockey name if you're over in Europe. And if your last name is Svatos, in the memory of Mark Svatos, play hockey. Number 2, Neil Broughton. It is too bad that he had to be a Devil when he won a Stanley Cup. But he did. And Neil Broughton, there were a couple of times where, there was talk about, oh, he's too old, he's too slow. And I, as a Neil Broughton fan, would say, no, he's not done yet. And then he'd have a really good run, and people are like, hey, look, Neil Broughton's back. And it's like, no, he's not back. You just took him for granted. Big fan of Neil Broughton's. He'll likely never make the Hall of Fame, but I'm a big fan of his nonetheless. Number 1 is a Hall of Famer. This surprises no one. This is the least surprising ending ever. Is that number 1 on my list, Mikey Modano of the Dallas Stars. Let us not discuss that he went to Detroit as a mistake. Let us only discuss that he signed with Dallas for one day so that he would retire as a Dallas Star. Mike Modano, for me, was just tremendous his whole career. And even though there were detractors during his career, questions about whether or not he played a full 200-foot game, was he a team player, was he selfish, and then they won a Stanley Cup, and all of a sudden all those questions seem to disappear. So Mike Modano, for me, is my favorite American player in NHL history. You guys can go ahead and feel free to mention your favorites. Happy July 4th to American viewers out there. And again, to those of you from Canada, I did post fireworks, and I did discuss Happy Canada/Free Agent Day on July 1st. So these guys get a video in the States, and Canada got a 2.5 hour live stream where we discussed July 1st. So no jealousy from Canada. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to keep these flags. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with these flags. I've even got some of those. They've got those gel things you put on windows. Those gel. I got one of those gel things that says I love USA. I haven't figured out where I'm putting it yet. But again, I slipped that in the bag when Yvonne wasn't looking. And, I've promised I won't put it anywhere that it seems overly prominent or weird. It really narrows it down. Not really. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And again, happy birthday, United States. Happy birthday to you all. And I hope everybody has a nice July 4th. Politics and everything aside, just enjoy July 4th. Blow some stuff up. Have your fireworks. Drink some beer. I'll drink my Coke Zero as usual. But thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you guys again soon.